Hey everyone, John P. here. Today, we're going to be covering the only 5 times that it is okay to pay retail for a watch. Now, we all like a good deal, right? Why wouldn't you want to pay less for something for the exact same thing if you can? But there's going to be 5 scenarios where not only is it difficult to avoid paying retail, it's also okay. Now, before we do that, on the wrist today, I have my Vacheron Constantin Overseas, the previous gen. Really cool watch. I have a blast with this. You can see this watch, as well as other watches that I wear in my personal life, and additional content over on my Instagram, The Real John P. So without further ado, the first scenario where it's okay, you have my blessing, approval, as well, is going to be a boutique-only watch. If a watch is released only at a boutique, that means a couple of things, but boutiques really no longer discount the product. And because of this, excess inventory for brand-owned boutiques generally go back to the brand. The days are kind of done with dumping for at least reputable high-end brands. Sure, you get into the mid-tier and lower, the overproduction still exists, and those get dumped out into the gray market to wholesalers and move out to your favorite clearance sites that have watches. But when you start getting into watches from holding companies such as Richemont, the reality is they are releasing boutique-only watches that you can only get the boutique, and you have to pay the retail price, which also means there's less of them floating around because less people are buying them because you have to pay the retail. It goes on. Go figure. So something like a Vacheron 56 Blue Dial on a bracelet is a boutique-only watch. You can still get them, no problem, and the prices hang pretty close in the aftermarket to the retail, or at least as close as possible that you can get when you start talking pre-owned watches. So the first scenario, boutique-only watches, this is kind of okay to buy retail. Now, also, I need to note that we're working with an assumption here that you actually want to wear the watches, right? If you don't like the watch and you were just perhaps speculating on a watch, this video really doesn't apply. This isn't for people that are trying to make a quick buck. This is for people that actually want the watch, are going to wear and enjoy it. So that takes us into the next scenario, is limited production or very limited numbered watches. Now, a lot of brands are not shy to let you know, especially Cartier, how many pieces they're going to produce. Limited to 50 pieces, limited to 100 pieces, things like that. Oftentimes it overlaps with boutique only. But when you have a limited piece selection like this, oftentimes you need to be on some type of good graces with either the boutique, the brand, the authorized dealer. Some of these limited production pieces, depending on the brand, depending on the scenario, you can't just necessarily buy unless you really want to buy them. And so because of this, there are also a lot less of these floating around. Brands have caught on to the flipping. They want to make sure that their watches are ending up in the hands of the most passionate and enthusiastic watch collectors that are going to be there tomorrow for the next release and buying that watch and the next and the next. Pick up the phone, Mr. Jones, do you want the next limited release? I digress. Nonetheless, limited production and numbered, you're basically going to have to pay retail a lot of the time. Not always. Maybe someone dumps one pre-owned out there, but it's okay to buy these limited run watches retail. The prices generally also hang closer, so you're not going to lose that much, likely. Now that takes us into a brand, go figure, Rolex. Yes, it's okay. Buy a Rolex at retail. Now, this is going to sound ridiculous or silly for people that know the Daytona, things like that. But some of the watches, including the Oyster Perpetuals, the OPs, they are trading at much closer to retail or occasionally even under than before when they were trading at, for some of the models, several times the retail price. Think of the Tiffany Blue Oyster Perpetual. You get the idea. And so, of course, it is common sense. Buying a Rolex at retail is one of the most safe if you're looking to limit the downside loss in value of your watch purchases you can make in the watch industry. So I'll move on. Actually, Patek Philippe, Patek Philippe is also very safe, but keep in mind some of their watches, some of the dressier watches, people don't really like that much, and they do trade under retail, so watch out for that. But of course, the hot, more in-demand watches, go figure, pay retail. Now that takes us into micro brands, and the reality is I think it's okay to pay retail for a micro brand. One, because generally there's not that much markup compared to their non-micro brand Swiss competitors, right? A Tag Heuer is going to have a lot more of a markup that needs to be there than something like another mid to lower, more entry-level micro brand watch, but similar components. So the prices are going to be lower already to begin with. So there's less of that kind of margin baked in. So I think that's fair. But in addition, if you want a micro brand watch, there are oftentimes not a lot of them to be made. Minimum order quantities are sometimes, a few hundred pieces. So if you want a specific watch, there might only be a few hundred of them floating around, in which case, unless one pops up pre-owned, you're probably just going to have to pay retail. In addition, a lot of micro brands are started and run by just average Joes, right? Average people that are just looking to have a good life and support their family with the income from starting this small business. So I like to support small business people as a fellow business owner. I think that's great. So I think it's more than okay to pay retail for micro brands if you like the watch. And that takes us into the last category here of the type of watch that it's okay, you have my approval, to pay retail, and that is going to be the affordables. Right now, affordables relative to everyone, I get that. Just for the sake of this conversation, let's say $750 US and under, something like that, right? Give us a little wiggle room here. Everyone has different scales for this type of thing. But when you get into that range, sure, maybe you can find the watch somewhere $5 cheaper, $10. But if you think about it, right, you're buying a few $100 Seiko watch. I have many of them in my collection, and occasionally they come up on sale. But I really believe that watches are a hobby, a passion, something that you can put on your wrist and enjoy it. And when it comes about the conversation of trying to wait for that watch to save $5, wait for that watch to save $10, that's the time, I think, for people to get a little introspective and try to see why they feel compelled to, wait for that $10 discount when they could just pay the $10 and maybe make an additional $10 doing whatever it is that they do in the world to, play their role in society. And if it does come down to like a $10, $15, $20 difference which is really what you're talking about in terms of discounts in this category sometimes, maybe the time is just truly better spent elsewhere to just make up the difference, because the amount of time you'll spend trying to find some of these deals, waiting for the Amazon deals, so on and so forth. I mean, if any of you out there are in this category, I know I'll probably take a little bit of heat for saying this, but leave in the comments below. I'd love to see and hear. Maybe there's some interesting discount sites for some of these watches that go up there. I'd love to see it and hear it. It sounds interesting. But I think this category as well, hey, $300-$400 watch, pay retail, move on with your day. And I think it'll just make, overall your watch collecting journey and experience a lot better. So guys, I mean, this has really been 5 scenarios where it's mostly okay, if not pretty close to always okay, to pay retail. But I would love to see and hear in the comments below, what do you think about this? Are you on the no retail ever crew? Are you on the bandwagon of pay anything as long as it's market price in the aftermarket? What is your position on this? I'd love to see it in the comments below, because I always see kind of polarizing comments about this. I'll never pay over retail. Oh, whatever. I'll pay double retail if I can move on with my day. I see it, and it's always interesting to see the different camps on this. So guys, chime in below, and we'll see you next time. You've been chatting with John P.